everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our Wednesday, May 2nd, 2012 meeting of the Reno City Planning Commission. If I could get everybody to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Michelle, roll call, please.
Kevin Weisky.
Here.
Dennis Romeo. Here. Doug Kaufman.
Here.
Patty Egan.
Here.
Buzz Harris.
Here.
Dagny Stapleton. Here. Jason Woosley.
Here.
Next on our agenda this evening is public comment. This item is for either general public comment or for public comment on an action item. If commenting on an action item, please place the agenda item number on the request to speak form. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms?
No, we do not.
Okay. Is there anyone here this evening who has not filled out a request to speak form who would like to speak on this public comment agenda item?
I'm on the agenda.
Then you don't need to speak now. You'll get your turn in a minute. Yes, sir, in the back row. If you would please come forward, state your name for the record, and then fill out a form over here with Michelle. I would appreciate it. You'll have 3 minutes.
Howdy. Actually, I can use a lot fewer than 3 minutes. My name is Rich Hamilton. I own a company here in Reno called Clean Energy Center. We are actually, I think, third on your agenda. But there are two other folks ahead of us with similar projects, which are solar energy projects. So I wanted to stand up ahead of all that and voice my support for these other two projects. Solar energy is a vital part of our economy in Nevada. We import our energy to Nevada. We import gas, coal, and other things to Nevada when we have abundant sun, geothermal, and wind and some hydropower. Additionally, this is something that adds value to these people's property. It is something that causes no harm to their neighbors and only really enhances the value of their property and the value of our city and the quality of life in our city. And I want just to voice very strong support for the other projects that are coming ahead of mine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Hearing and seeing no one else, I will close public comment at this time and move on to our agenda. Item number 4, approval of minutes of the April 5th, 2012 regular meeting. We have any corrections? Motion?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Kaufman with a motion to approve. Second by Commissioner Woosley.
Sure, I will second that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
We need.
Do we have abstentions?
I abstain. I was not present at the meeting.
Commissioner Harris?
Me as well.
And Commissioner Egan. Thank you. The workshop minutes, Michelle, we will do those in 2 weeks at our workshop, correct?
No, I emailed those to you last week.
Okay.
So you should have them. And
Okay.
they were supposed to be approved today.
I just didn't know if we needed to do it from a hard copy. Okay. So can I have a second motion for the workshop meeting minutes, please? Commissioner Kaufman?
Move to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Woosley?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any comments or corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Push a button.
Commissioner Harris, I abstain as I was not present.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next on our agenda, item number 5, City Council Liaison Reports. Don't have any this evening. Next on our agenda, item number 6 is public hearings. The first one up this evening is LDC 12-00043. If the applicant's representative will come forward, please. For 1950 LaFawn Solar Array. Okay. And before you get started, do we have disclosures from anybody? I received an email on this one, so I have that disclosure. Thank you. Welcome. If
Thank
you
you.
will please introduce yourself, you'll have 15 minutes or less to present your project.
Perfect. I'm Lindsay Tost. I'm the general manager at Solar Universe. While we respect the public's concerns for the aesthetic properties of the solar array, we would like to point out that from all directions, the solar array will be unseen from all public roads and nearly all residences. According to the analysis in the staff report, potential visual impacts are limited due to topography, fencing, and a large number of mature evergreens on site. If you refer to the photographs taken at the job site, both fencing and mature trees block the view of the solar array from the residences on the north and west sides of the property. To the south, a buffer of mature trees and a steep downward slope are between the array and nearby residences. And finally, to the west is the facility at 1950 LaFond, otherwise known as the Sisters of Our Lady of the Mountain Carmel. Furthermore, this 50 kilowatt solar system will save on average $15,000 a year for the facility. It was also given through the Solar Generations rebate program through NV Energy, and if not carried out by October 14th of 2012, they'll lose the rebate and the potential to save tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that is our case.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If we have any questions, we'll be looking for you. Staff, welcome, Nathan.
Good evening, Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner. We received numerous inquiries regarding this project. All of them, the questions were resolved by sending site plans and the renderings of the project. We did receive numerous emails. They were forwarded to the commission. One of the emails was a statement of opposition, but by and large, the comments have been positive once the project was discussed. Given the size of the site, it's a 20-acre site, and the natural clearing, the mature trees, and existing fencing, we think that this is an ideal site to promote the city's energy policies. Staff can make all the findings and recommend approval with conditions.
Thank you very much. With that, I will open public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms on this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on this agenda item who has not filled out a request to speak form? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the commission for questions, discussion, motion. Commissioner Kaufman?
This is for the applicant.
Lindsay, would you come back up to the microphone, please?
Did you take this project to the NAB at all?
Yes, we did. They decided to cancel the meeting for April, but as far as I know, all the members of the NAB received the plans, the pictures, the application, and everything.
Okay.
And there
thank
were
you.
no comments given by them.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Nathan? Any comments from the NAB from?
I can concur with that. They were on the agenda. The NAB was canceled. We received no questions or
No.
comments from members.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, comments, discussion, motion? Commissioner Kaufman?
In the case of LDC 12-0043, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to conditions, and I can make all the findings.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Stapleton?
I can make the findings. I second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, and good luck with your project. Next on our agenda this evening is item number LDC 12-00030, 1 Elm Court Solar Array. If the applicant's representative will come forward, please, and give us a minute for disclosures, I would appreciate it. Commissioner Kaufman, would you like to start with disclosures?
I did receive some emails.
Thank you. Commissioner Woosley?
Yes, I received emails and met with the applicant.
Okay. As have I, along with meeting with one of the neighbors and also a Mr. James from the State Historical Society. Commissioner Romeo?
And I've received emails, and I also met on site with one of the neighbors.
Commissioner Harris?
I did receive some emails concerning this as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Stapleton?
I also got emails and met with one of the neighbors.
Thank you. Commissioner Egan?
I had emails and conversations, and based upon the advice of the city attorney's office, I have a pecuniary interest within 700 feet of the property with my personal residence, so I'm going to recuse myself from this item.
Thank you very much. I will call you back when this item has been heard.
And Chair
Have
Weiss,
fun.
The city attorney's office does concur with Mr. Egan's disclosure and abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Boney. Appreciate that. Michelle, can we get that microphone turned up a little louder, please? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify that I met with the applicant neighbor, not the applicant.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Woosley. With that, if the applicant's representative will introduce himself, please, you will have 15 minutes to describe your project to us. Explain it. Thank you.
My name is Don Clark with Cathexis for the applicants, ultimately Peter and Renata Newman, who live on Elm Court. It's a little hard to see this diagram on the screen, but their property is this property right in orange. This is actually, their residence is off of a private easement and a drive called Elm Court, off of Court Street. There's only, I think, 4 other residences total that actually are off of that. It doesn't, from the public streets that you go on, you don't even see the property. This is a little, a diagram on the site itself. We are asking for a variance to place the solar array in this location on the south side of the property. That's literally the only site place on the property where you could put a solar array successfully. There's old growth trees right behind it to the south that you would either have to cut down if you move the project to the south, or anywhere near the house. From the house further towards Truckee River, it's a steep north-facing slope, and you wouldn't get the benefits of a solar array. This is a view of what you would see from Court Street. Let's see if I can. So the solar array, Peter and Renata have already planted evergreens along their property. The solar array actually would end up somewhere about the edge of the paper behind the garage as you go by Court Street. So you won't even see it as you go by. You'll get a very quick glance of it as you go by to the properties beyond. This literally is physically the only place you could put a solar array successfully on this site without cutting down large trees or doing some other things that actually would be a detriment, I think, to the neighborhood. We've responded, I think, to a lot of the same information you have, and I think the one significant thing that has come out of the dialogue has been concern about the historical status of the Newlands Mansion. A couple of things. Mr. Newman has a letter here that we can submit that will, he's willing to record if need be, that if in any way that the solar array would jeopardize the historical status of the Newlands Mansion, that he would alter the location or do whatever mitigation is necessary. But we also I brought the actual national register of why the Newlands Mansion is on the register, and it's on the register because of who Mr. Newlands was. It's not about the structure, the setting, the architecture. It's kind of like the Mark Twain's house or someone else's house. Who he was is why it's on the register, and we don't see any way that putting a solar array changes that prominence of Mr. Newlands. So, you know, we've worked extensively with staff and others. I think we've met all the findings. Mr. Newman's willing to speak, or if you have any questions of him as well. And if you have any other questions of me, that's why we're here.
Don, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Staff?
Vern Close, Senior Planner. I believe Mr. Clark explained the request adequately and addressed the historic issues that have come up during the process. I would like to point out, though, that the variance before us is for a structure to be placed within the front yard, between the front yard setback and the main house. It happens to have a solar array on it. Generally, if you were looking at a structure like this in this situation that didn't have a solar array on it, it probably would not be appropriate, because the solar array is being placed in the only place where it can be to function adequately to meet the requirements. So in looking at this, you could possibly put the array someplace else and not have the structure there. But in this instance, the structure is, according to the applicant and the information they've provided, is required to be placed in that area because of the solar array. So I just wanted to make that clear, that if they put it someplace else, it wouldn't require a variance, but then it, according to their information, would compromise the function of the purpose of the solar array. Staff, as indicated in the report, can make all the findings. You've received emails and correspondence, I believe, from Mrs. Guston. I emailed that to you this afternoon. I also provided a hard copy in case you didn't get the email. And that's the most recent discussion about that. And she was, very concerned about this affecting the historic status of the Newlands Mansion. And Mr. Clark, addressed that issue. And you also have the information from the Federal Registry on what they look at to put something on the registry, and the criteria they use, and also the criteria that's used to remove a listing. So at this point, it's up to you folks to take a look at that, and if you have adequate information to make a decision, or if you need more, you can tell us that too. So staff is recommending approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. At this time, I would like to open public comment. And Michelle, I have received one request to speak form. Is that correct? Is that all you have?
That's all I have.
Okay. Neil Ferguson, if you will, please. You will have 3 minutes. Introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Neil Ferguson. I live at 640 California Avenue in Reno, Nevada. I've lived in that house since 1975. Lived in the neighborhood, the Newlands neighborhood, since 1970. Currently, I'm a co-chairman of the Newlands Neighborhood Association. I've been involved in the consideration of this project. I've looked at the correspondence, or at least some of it, that has gone back and forth between staff and Mr. Newman. I've also been a part of the process in which an independent architect was asked to evaluate the solar array. We raised, as members of the Newlands Neighborhood Association, several issues. We think that those issues have been adequately addressed, and so I would like to say this evening that we are in support of Mr. Newman and Mrs. Newman being allowed to erect this solar array with the conditions identified by staff. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. If we do, we'll call you back up.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here this evening who wishes to speak on this agenda item who has not filled out a request to speak form? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment on this agenda item. Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't see you raise your hand, ma'am. If you'll come forward, please. And anybody else who wishes to speak this evening on an agenda item, we have requests to speak forms. They're right over here to my right, your left, with Michelle. If you would please fill those out and turn them over to her, I would appreciate it greatly. And if you would do so after your 3 minutes or your talk, I would appreciate it, ma'am. If you introduce yourself, you'll have 3 minutes, please.
I'm Lou Melton. I live at 4 Elm Court, which is the Frederick the Longchamp's honeymoon cottage. I've been restoring it for the last 5 years, so I drive right past the Newman's property every day, and it will not bother me to have that solar array there. And that's my only comment on it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Would you mind filling out a request to speak form for me, please? Right here with Michelle. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? With that, I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for questions. Commissioner Stapleton, would you like to start?
I will, and I have a question maybe for you, Kevin. I just want to get total clarification on the historic listing issue and the email from SHPO that we got a copy of. Most of my concerns were addressed by the applicant, and also reading what the conditions were, what the requirements were for delisting. Was there any follow-up? You mentioned you talked to Ron James. Was there any follow-up after his email about his determination as the SHPO officer on this issue?
I spoke with Mr. James last month. I have not spoken to him in the last 2 weeks since the last several emails and questions have arisen. I would like to defer to staff, to Vern, for additional comments, or to the applicant's representative for that answer.
Chairman Weisky, before
Okay.
Mr. Close comments on that, regarding Commissioner Stapleton's comments regarding the applicable law that you've received copies of, I need to be very clear that from legal's perspective, we are not sure whether or not that is the entire body of law that discusses listing or delisting of properties from the National Historical Registry. So I just want to be clear about that. That's not an area of expertise that our office typically gets involved in, so that there may be other codes or statutes or things like that out there that we are not aware of at this point in time. So I just want to be very clear about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would you still like to hear from staff? Or
If-
the applicant's representative might be better at this?
No, I mean, unless they have something additional to add. I was just wondering if anybody had talked to Mr. James since that email, because that email was sort of what triggered all of this. And since he's the SHPO officer, I was just wondering. But if not, then
Mr. Cluse?
Brent Close, Senior Planner. I spoke to Mr. James a couple of times. Actually, the Monday or Tuesday before this was continued or postponed from April, and asked him, what, the significance of this was. In other words, what process or, what should we go through to determine this, or what criteria would be used. And he indicated that we had something in place, which would be the Historic Resources Commission, to send this through for a recommendation, because that's what they do, is they make recommendations on these sorts of things. I can tell, and I've talked to him a couple times, and that was kind of his recommendation. We asked him if he could come, and he said he could not attend the meeting. I did speak with other people that were involved with the Historic Resources Commission. Donald Nachwin, who used to be our staff person for them, and he now works for the state. And he was, in fact, the one that gave me the regulation, so he's pretty familiar with how this works. And again, this is what he told me, and he also consulted with another person from the state that works with SHPO on these sorts of issues, and both of them said that they highly doubted that what was being proposed would cause that to be delisted. So that's just some background information, kind of the information I've called out of this process. This is not my primary area of expertise, but that's some background on how we've gotten to where we are.
Thank you, Vern.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Romeo.
I have a question for legal. If we add a condition number 9 that reflects the letter that the applicant was willing to attach, that if this project results in a delisting of the National Historic Landmark, is that enforceable by our codes?
Commissioner Romeo, you run into probably something that isn't as clean as we would want it to be. A letter or a commitment to remove something after an individual has spent time and money creating a structure. I would think what you would want to do would be get the information or the approval from the entities that list and delist from the National Historical Registry prior to doing any type of construction, any type of thing like that. Perhaps what could be done is, if the applicants are willing to provide a letter to that effect, and perhaps it could be taken to another level where the applicants would be willing to enter into an agreement with the Newlands Mansion individuals, where if something leads to the requirement that that property is delisted, then, picking up now? Okay, if something happens and it leads to the delisting of the Newlands Mansion, then by an agreement between those parties, they agree that it would be taken down, and then that could then go right into a civil court within the appropriate jurisdiction.
So that would be a civil issue between the two entities, not the purview of this commission?
It would remove the city from it at that point in time.
Okay. Okay, then I can't even ask the applicant if he's willing to do that with the owners of or I can.
You know, the commission can ask questions.
The applicant's rep or the applicants have indicated that they're willing to stipulate a letter like that with the owners of the Newlands Mansion that would say that if it was to be delisted because of this project, they would be willing to remove it.
We actually brought their letter with us. So,
okay.
We're willing to do that.
Have you talked to the owners of that?
Can I speak a little also to the historic issue? I mean,
Let's deal.
Well, I'm asking.
Let's deal with one question at a time and stay where we're at, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you talked to the owners of the mansion?
Not since this issue came up.
Okay. All right. I'm done, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll get back to you in just a minute, Don. Commissioner Harris?
Commissioner Romeo answered the same question, asked the same question I was after.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Woosley?
Thank you. This is turning over to discussion with the board here. Just wanted to talk about the advantages and disadvantages that legal spoke about as far as presenting a letter and then moving forward with the process. And then if something did happen, obviously, then action would be taken. Or is it an advantage to wait until there is a ruling from the historic board? And from what I understand, that could be a month or two. And so also, I didn't know if the applicant would be willing to do that. That might be cleaner as well than actually having it done between the private parties.
And I didn't hear, I apologize, what you said, a ruling from which entity on this?
So instead of taking action at this moment, waiting to see what the board would decide if it was being delisted, and then you could have an official answer before any action was taken. That is just one option versus presenting a letter. But I'm just kind of going over the options here, not necessarily.
It is, and which board, though, that's what I didn't hear that you were talking about. Which board would render an opinion? Are you talking about the State Historic Preservation Office or the Historical Resources Commission?
That was the one recommended that would go over that, correct?
It is an option. However, please be mindful of the fact that the Historical Resources Commission is merely, they can only give recommendations. They're an advisory body.
Okay.
Their decisions are not binding.
Thank you. So that actually brings up a good point, that that's just a recommendation, that it is not binding. So that's something else that I need to consider, as well as all of us.
Yes, thank you. If I can interrupt real quick, Michelle, for the record, Claudia Hansen has joined us. Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? I have a question for the applicant's representative, please. Yeah. Don, is the applicant, and if you want to defer to Mr. Newman, that's fine. Is the applicant, we know there's a letter, is the applicant willing to accept an additional condition onto his special use permit that may state something that prior to pulling or the issuance of a building permit, that a recorded agreement between himself, the owners of One Elm Court, and also the owners of the Newland Mansion be recorded with the county recorder, that if this particular structure were to be the cause of the Newlands Mansion to be in jeopardy of losing its National Historical Registry position, that apparatus and solar system would be taken down?
I'm not sure I want to speak for Mr. Newman on this, but
Okay.
we've already, written the letter and have been willing to record that. I can't speak for Mrs. Guston if she's willing to sign an agreement, so I'm not sure he can either, if that's part of the condition.
Okay.
So, yeah.
My name is Peter Newman. I'm the applicant, and thank you. I would be willing to do that, but I just know from the 25-year history that we've had with Melinda Guston, which has gone up to the Nevada Supreme Court, in which she sued us and the city, or she sued us and the, yeah, I guess it was the city. She told me personally at the Postal Depot on California Avenue a week ago. I happened to run into her, and she came up to me and said, Peter, I just want you to know Dan and I have absolutely no problems with your solar application. I said, thank you very much, Melinda. I appreciate that. I don't think it's going to cause, you won't even know it's there because it's going to be behind these trees anyway. And so I was very surprised to learn that she's been apparently lobbying all of you and the staff and everybody else against this behind my back. I don't think with that history, and it's a 25-year history, and I've got a copy of the Supreme Court decision with me if you'd like to read it, that it's very practical to assume that we could ever enter into an agreement with the Gustons. But I think, as a lawyer myself, I'm not a contract lawyer, so I don't have any particular skill in contract. But I still remember 45 years ago from my law school days that if you take a position and put it in writing to your detriment, that it's unenforceable. And I think this letter, if I can read it out loud, I've said, Dear Mr. Clues and members of the Reno Planning Commission, this is dated today and signed. It is my understanding that some concerns have been expressed by a certain person or persons that the federal historical status or designation of the Elm Court Drive neighborhood or of my residence at One Elm Court could be removed or lost if I construct the solar array, which I desire to build on the south edge of my lot, near the north edge of the private driveway known as Elm Court Drive. And by the way, Elm Court Drive is a private street. It's never been dedicated. That's our only way to get in and out of our house unless we swim across the Truckee River. But we don't own it. The Gustons own Elm Court Drive. We don't. We have an easement, I guess, in perpetuity. Then my next paragraph says, this will confirm that I am willing to record, in other words, with the county recorder's office, a declaration that in the unlikely event that the federal historical status or designation of my property or that of my adjacent neighbors on Elm Court Drive in Reno will or shall be lost as a result of the erection of my proposed solar array, I agree to move its location back from the proposed one an appropriate distance. Or I can take it down for that matter. I mean, if it's really this big of a problem, I'll just withdraw. No good deed goes unpunished. I've got a solar array at my office at 136 Ridge Street. I believe in solar for the reasons that the other gentleman expressed. And I think, Senator Newlands probably would have agreed that saving a few trees is probably a good thing. And that's why I want to do this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Newman. I
So-
appreciate that. And I can only speak for myself, and I want to clarify something that you just said. In my case, I did meet with Mrs. Guston. I have
that's
not
fine.
been lobbied against the project. The only thing that I have personally been asked to do is what we are discussing this evening. I believe if the other commissioners were to give a statement, they would probably say something similar to that we're trying to get you with a solar array put up in your front yard, along with keeping a home that's on the National Registry untouched.
Yeah,
And-
I agree
and
with
that's,
that.
That's the intent here, and that's what we're working towards. We're working for you, in your behalf and in your favor, along with the owner and any future owners of your property and/or that Newlands property, to keep everything status quo, just so
Right.
you understand what
No,
our intentions are.
I agree with that
okay?
completely.
So
Now, one thing I would like to clarify, and I don't know if you know this, but my residence at 1 Elm Court was built by Senator Newlands approximately the same time as the Guston's residence.
Okay.
Um,
But yours is not on a registry.
No, and mine was
Okay.
never his actual residence. It was his office, as I understand it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Question for legal again. Rob, we've heard the letter read into our hearing this evening. We know that we do not want to be, the city of Reno does not want to be put in a position of deciding whether it's right or wrong, deciding whether it's binding or non-binding at this time. Would a condition that I described earlier, a condition number 9, stating that this document be recorded, whether it is signed by both parties or not, but if this document is recorded by the current property owner of 1 Elm Court, would that be sufficient to cover anything in the future that we know about or can understand right now, to cause a future owner to take down this trellis and solar array if there's a problem with the National Registry on the adjacent property, or a neighboring property, I should call it?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a step in the right direction. As I recall hearing the letter being read, though, it talked about moving the solar structure. I don't recall that it said, and I believe Mr. Newman said he would add language that he would remove it if that were required, but I don't believe that comment is actually in the letter. I think there are some other alternatives here that may be perhaps considered, and that would be to try to seek an advisory opinion from the State Historic Preservation Office, and if that is not a viable option, also trying to contact the National Registry, the organization that put this property on the Historical Registry, to see what their thought process is on this matter. Again, we have a snippet of a body of law that talks about listing and delisting. I can make no representation to this commission that that is the entire body of law that's out there.
Right, and that's, I understand what your comments were earlier regarding that. I hope we all understand that. I guess what I'm trying to do is see if we can move this forward this evening, and put some closure to it with a letter that states that would be recorded, that would not include any decision or definitions from the city of Reno or the Planning Commission or even City Council if it were to be appealed, to be bound to this agreement. Should be civilly between two neighbors. And if one agrees now verbally, then one should agree in writing to the same terms at this time. Am I out of line?
No, I think you are in line. They may want to consider tightening up the letter a little bit to include the address of the property that is on the historical registry.
Okay.
Rather than talking about a neighboring property. I don't have a copy of the letter here, so I'm going off,
Okay.
Memory when I can't, it isn't the
That's
best all
fine.
the time. But, things like that, as the commission's role in this particular matter is to determine that you can make the findings. And if the commission is comfortable based on the material and the evidence that's been produced, that you can make the findings regarding the variance. And I think the email was concerning condition C, as I recall, in the list of A through D. It's the commission's, if you can comfortable making those findings.
Okay.
And you can add conditions to the variance as the ordinance allows.
Thank you. If I can get the applicant's representative to come forward, please. I've got a question for you. Don, my problem, the only problem I have in findings is variance 1C, and that's granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to property or improvements in the vicinity. And that's what this discussion is all about. I believe every comment that you've heard this evening is exactly that. That's the concern, and whether it's you or Mr. Newman that needs to answer this, would Mr. Newman be willing to tighten this letter up? He has represented himself as an attorney. He knows what should be in that document, that we can put a condition number 9 on this that would help it to move forward and see closure with it tonight. Mr. Newman?
I'm probably malpracticing myself. But yes, I would do that. I could work with the city attorney. I mean, if the historic, I'll just tell you under oath here if you want, you can swear me in. If this thing somehow affects the Guston's historical status, or however it is.
I'd like to refer to it as the Newlands Mansion because they may not always own it.
Right. I will do whatever it takes so that doesn't happen.
Okay.
If I have to take it down, I'll take it down.
And what we're trying to do is make sure that when we're not all sitting up here, Mr. Boney has found a way to retire and is no longer with the city.
Right.
And neither party who owns those properties today has an issue with it 40 years down the road. There is a document and documentation that can be brought forward to clarify any issues. And,
Exactly.
and that's what we're looking for.
And
And
it'll be recorded with the county recorder's office. So it'll
Okay.
be a part of our property chain of title.
very good. Thank you.
Kevin,
You've answered the
and I'm
question.
glad he's questioned. I do want to answer the historical thing one more time.
No, thank you.
Okay.
With that, I will ask for more comments and/or discussion from the commission, and if there are any further questions that you would like to ask of applicants or staff, please do so. Commissioner Romeo.
Yeah, I'll start the comment section. I'm comfortable that Mr. Newman has the best intentions of the property owners and the neighbors at heart. And I think condition 9 can be written in such a way that would tighten that up and guarantee that should the threat or should the dropping of a National Historic Landmark on the other property that we're talking about come about, that he would do the right thing and take it down, move it, or do whatever the historic registry would say to do to keep it. I think that's what good neighbors do. I think his intentions are right. With that condition 9 modified, the letter that we talked about, I can make the findings, including 1C. That was the one that was of concern to me. With that said, when the time comes, I'd be more than willing to make a motion for approval.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Harris.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Romeo in the fact that this is a sensitive neighborhood, as well as your neighbors, the applicant reaching out to the association, which I'm not exactly sure how big it is, but it's been around for quite some time. I think this is a project that's been looked at very carefully, and I would support it as well with the additional condition.
Thank you. Commissioner Stapleton.
Yeah, my concerns were the same about the historic listing and maintaining that historic listing. And just to make Mr. Newman feel a little bit better, the first time I talked to Mrs. Guston was, and the only time was before the last time this was at Planning Commission, and since then, I have not, since the last time it was on our agenda and was postponed until now, I haven't heard from her, nor have I heard any other significant opposition. Since that time, we've received additional information, and I'm comfortable and I can also make that finding. I think, unfortunately, all of this was triggered by the email from Ron James of SHPO, and in my mind, somebody has abdicated their responsibility a little bit because nobody, SHPO wasn't willing to say either way whether, this would really have an impact on this property. I mean, they're the National Historic Peoples representative here in Nevada, so that's what sort of started this whole thing, and now we're far down on this road where we have to have a condition and all this. Despite the fact that SHPO won't make a ruling, all the information that I see, I think we're pretty safe. And like I said, I can make the finding and support. And also, I see that Mrs. Guston isn't here tonight, so I'm assuming, maybe I shouldn't do this, but that those that were in opposition are also comfortable at this point. So,
Commissioner Kaufman.
I can support this project with or without number 9, because again, I think it's a civil thing. If putting up that solar structure, and it wouldn't, and plus I can't see where that would affect the register. So, either way.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaufman. Commissioner Woosley.
Thank you. Yes, I originally had concerned about the location, moving it to the edge of the property, but I did visit the site and saw the trees planted along the way and agree that it's minimal impact. And, after looking at that, I definitely can support the project, but I am concerned about the delisting, so I think I can only support it with the condition number 9 amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm, along with everybody else, that's why I have spent the last few minutes discussing condition number 9 to great detail to make sure that we do provide a condition number 9, because 1C is the only finding I could not make. Without that letter, I cannot make it. With the letter recorded with Washoe County Recorder's Office, I can make the finding, and I will be voting in favor of the project. With that, Commissioner Romeo, I will let you make that motion and offer your condition number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the case of LDC 12-00030, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the variance subject to conditions, and I would like to add a condition 9 with a letter between the applicant and the current owner of the Newlands Mansion regarding.
Commissioner Romeo, before
Yes.
you say that, I believe that letter should be addressed to the address, not the current owner, in case that property changes hands.
That's
then
fine.
it's attached to it for the life of the addresses.
Okay, to the addresses, the letter regarding steps to be taken, recorded with the county in the event of a delisting of the mansion as a National Historic Landmark. The details will have to be worked out with attorneys between the two parties. I can make those findings.
I have a motion. Before I ask for a second, like to make sure, Rob, that legal is okay with the way condition number 9 was read.
And Chairman, if I could just ask for clarification, Commissioner Romeo stated that the details to be worked out between the attorneys of the two parties. Define what he means by parties. I mean, which attorneys are you talking about? City attorney and
The applicant and the address or owner of the Newlands Mansion.
Okay.
And that would be
No,
only.
I disagree. It should be strictly with One Elm Court, and that if any of the adjacent properties, whether it's I mean, there could be another property at some point that gets put on the National Historical Registry that we wouldn't want it limited between the two parties. It should be so that the current owner, Mr. Newman, records the letter saying that if a property on the National Historical Registry is to be delisted because of his solar apparatus, that he would agree to take it down. It's just him writing that letter. You're trying to do, get an approval from somebody, or what do you?
Well, I'm trying to get an agreement between the two owners of the property. That's what a civil agreement is. It's not between an address and an address. It's between the two owners of the property. And the only property that we're looking at right now that is on the National Historic Landmark is that mansion. If anything else were to come in at a later time, they would have to deal with it as it exists at that time. I don't think we should be concerning ourselves with that particular part of the future. I'm strictly focusing on the issue before us right now, and that's the potential delisting of the mansion there.
Rob?
I think Commissioner Romeo raises an interesting point in the fact that should another property decide it wants to go through the process of being placed on the National Registry, I would think at that point in time it would be up to the registry to look at the surrounding structures and see if there would be anything in there that would get in the way. But I think and I don't want to paraphrase what Mr. Newman has said, but it's my understanding he's willing to craft a letter that is binding upon himself and all future owners of his property, that should his solar structure lead to the delisting of this property, he would agree to remove that structure. And if he files that with the county recorder's office, that should run with the property from henceforward.
Beautiful, and that's why you're an attorney and I'm not.
Well, don't ask me to repeat it.
Did you get that, Michelle? I will amend my motion to reflect what was just stated. Is that all right with you, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, that's perfect. Now we're all on the same page. Okay? And I believe that pretty much settles it then. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Commissioner Harris?
I can second that motion and also make the findings with the wonderful verbiage that our attorney came up with.
Thank you very much. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much and good luck with your project. Commissioner Egan, welcome you back to our meeting. Next on our agenda is LDC 12-00045, High Desert Montessori School Solar Project. If the applicant's representative will come forward, please. And before you get started, are there any disclosures? Commissioner Kaufman?
I'd received emails.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Woosley?
I've received emails as well.
All right. As have I, along with making a site visit to look at the property. Commissioner Romeo?
As have I.
Commissioner Harris? Nothing? Commissioner
Emails.
Stapleton? Thank you.
Emails.
And Commissioner Egan? Thank you. Okay, if you will, please introduce yourself. Again, you will have 15 minutes or less to describe your project, and welcome.
Hi again, my name is Rich Hamilton. I'm president of Clean Energy Center here in Reno, Nevada. And we've been working for some time with the High Desert Montessori School to supply them with a solar power array. We have a rebate, or the school, I should say, has a rebate that actually we had to go to the Public Utility Commission of Nevada and petition them to get a larger rebate so that the school could offset their entire power use. So this project is actually, it's sort of doing two things at once for the school. One is it is reducing their power use, putting them on a better track financially. saving them over $500,000 in power costs over the life of the system. Additionally, which the principal, which was with me, will get into, it also has other benefits for the school, both with their philosophy and with the requirements of what they're planning or what they need to do to provide for the children. First things first, I would like to discuss the application we had to fill out for this. In that every single point apart from residential adjacency, we essentially were answering no or something descriptive of the project. Sound, waste, emissions, every single thing other than residential adjacency was answered no or not applicable. And in going over this, this project fits very well within the neighborhood it's living within. If we look here, right here is the school, and the solar project is partially on the roof and partially in the playground here. And the playground section is a shade structure, similar to a carport. To the northeast, the east, and the south of the project are all pre-existing carports or shade structures, of which are in varying degrees of repair, disrepair. Oh yeah, and directly across the street. Similar structures sort of existing in the neighborhood of this project. The structure is going to be a shade structure normally built for someone's backyard as a shade structure or an awning. However, we're tilting it up and we're putting solar panels on the roof of it, as found in nature. And this is what is in the yard currently, which is what the school has been using to provide shade for the children, of which are temporary structures which blow over in the wind and have been a cost, an expense, an ongoing expense to the school to continually replace these structures, replace the tarps and replace the structures in general. With that, the second half of our little talk, and I don't know exactly how you'd like to have us speak, but Tammy was going to speak. She's principal in the school, or would you like
That's
to ask
fine.
me
You have
questions?
15 minutes or less to
Okay.
do what you're going to do here.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Tammy Stockton, and I am the principal of High Desert Montessori Charter School, with a school with close to 400 students ranging from infant toddlers through 8th graders. We are located off Audi Boulevard near Rita Cannon Elementary. Our school has been located on Oravada Boulevard since 2005 and moved into a second location last April on Silverado Boulevard. As we continue to grow, so does the needs of our school. Part of our school's mission statement includes, we urge all of our students to be participating members of, am I still on? Yeah. Okay. Am I on? You're good. Okay. Of a socially conscious and green community by inspiring them to be critical thinkers capable of reflection, communication, and action. High Desert was awarded a Nevada Energy Rebate earlier this school year in the amount of nearly $450,000, along with a grant from the Nevada Department of Energy for another $20,000 to install solar panels at our school. We are thrilled to be taking part in this project for the following reasons. First of all, solar energy education. Currently, the school works with Urban Roots and Envirolutions to create a curriculum that focuses on outdoor education, gardening, sustainability, and we would like to continue that process by having a curriculum devoted entirely to solar education with our students. Second is shade. Our school has preschoolers on campus, and with that, social services requires that when they are outdoors that we have some area that has shade. The school has repeatedly tried to provide that shade to the preschoolers in a manner that really hasn't been very successful. Every time we have a good wind, our tarps blow to Fernley. So we are constantly having to go out and repair that. This was looking at more of a long-term solution for the school with some much-needed shade, not only for our preschoolers, but also for our elementary school students while they're out on the playground. And finally, the third reason that we would like to go forward with this project is, of course, cost savings for the school. As Rich talked about, over the course of this project, we're looking at saving over $500,000. We're looking at right now saving the school, once we are up and running at full capacity, about $1,000 a month on our energy bills every month, and that's pretty substantial for us. We urge the City of Reno to approve our special use permit for the construction of a much-needed shade structure, which would include which would also be a solar projects, a solar shade area, which would include an energy education component, generate solar power, as well as provide the much-needed shade on our campus. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Is that it?
Can you say solar shades structure?
Solar slates.
Is that it, or would you like?
I have one more thing I actually wanted to bring up. I'm sorry. I will be well under my 15 minutes.
It's okay.
Yeah. Further, and I can leave these with you, we have a solar farm reflection study from the Topaz Solar Farm, and what's telling in this is that when folks speak about solar energy and reflection, which is every form of human endeavor having an impact, this is about the only one we can come up to. However, that impact is only about a couple of days a year for no more than about 12 minutes if you're standing in the right spot. That's literally if you're in the right spot at the right time, twice a year, you can get some reflection on this. Additionally, we are under the flight path. I have multiple studies, and there's been a large body of evidence for the lack of impact for solar energy and, again, reflection of this from the solar panels on airplanes passing over. To that extent, the first page I stapled together here is the Fresno Airport, where they have it. They also have solar project or a solar array at the Reno Airport, right next to the firehouse. And the reason for this is that really we're using very low reflective glass, and this is less reflective than the windows at the school that are currently reflecting light. It's less reflective than water when you have puddles on the school. So if you're in the right place at the right time, then you can see a lower amount of reflectivity than the windows. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Staff?
Thank you, Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner. Staff can make the applicable findings. We've received one email in opposition based on the address that was provided. This is a property owner that lives about a block north with no line of sight into the building. Email was forwarded to the commission. Again, this is a project that meets the policy objectives for the City of Reno's policy plan, and staff can make the findings, recommends approval.
Thank you, Nathan. With that, I will open public comment on this agenda item. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Is there anyone here this evening who has not filled out a request to speak form who would like to speak on this agenda item? Hearing and seeing none, I close public comment. Bring it back to the commission for questions, comments, motion. Commissioner Harris?
Mr. Chairman, I did not disclose earlier, but I did find an email that I did get on this.
Thank you very much for the disclosure. Motion, Commissioner Egan?
Based upon, in the case LDC 12-00045, High Desert Montessori School Solar Project, based upon the compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to the conditions. I can make the finding.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Woosley.
So I'd like to second that. I can make the findings.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project. Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is item number 4, LDC 12-00039, Franktown Corners Child Care and Playground. If the applicant's representative will come forward, please. And I will ask for disclosures if there are any. I'll start, or Commissioner Kaufman, go ahead, please.
I have received emails on this project.
Thank you. Commissioner Woosley?
As well as I.
As well as I. Commissioner Romeo?
So have I.
Commissioner Harris?
As well as I.
Commissioner Stapleton?
Emails.
Commissioner Egan?
As have I.
Thank you.
That's discouraging.
Well, you will have, after you introduce yourself, you will have 15 minutes or less to describe your project.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Moreland, and my family, my brother, my sister, and my sister-in-law, we are wanting to start a child care center at Franktown Corners. This is Kitsky Lane here, and there's a walkway that goes back here, and this is where we want to build a playground. This is an empty lot right now. As a matter of fact, homeless people have been living back there. They're out of there now, but it's an empty lot. And this is a driveway along here, and then a carport. So there's only really one apartment that is affected, and there are four apartments in that one complex. And we have agreed to put up a sound wall between the play yard and the property. And the second part of our request is that we be allowed to be open 24 hours. I've taught nursing at Western Nevada College since 1979, and I've run into nursing students and nurses for many, many years who can't find care at night. And I've worked some at West Hills with students, and I've seen a lot of damaged children, and I wanted to take care of well children before I died. So we just would like to make a contribution to the community. There's a big need. There is no overnight centers in Reno, and that's our hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stay close. We will call you with questions if we have them. Staff.
Hello again, Vern Close, Senior Planner. This particular project, there's concerns about the neighborhood and the security of putting a child care facility in this area. This project was reviewed by the police department. Their consolidation of their comments is in the staff report. There are conditions in the staff report related to security, fencing, lighting, security cameras being installed with the operation so that the areas can be continuously monitored. There are also requirements by the Department of Social Services that they have to comply with, which are related to keeping lists of the children and the employees and their addresses so that they can have the contact information on the people that work there as well as the children that attend the facility. They are installing a wall around the west and north sides of the property, including landscaping, the buffer, the project, the playground from the residential uses to the north and to the west. They're on the west side, the trees are 10 feet tall because that's where the largest impact would be on the adjacent residential to provide screening. And on the north side, they're 6 foot tall, which is the minimum code, but the nearest residence is about 70 or 80 feet to the north of that, separated by a double row of parking and carports. So we believe that all the buffering and fencing and security issues are adequately addressed with the conditions, and staff is recommending approval. I did provide a letter that I believe I emailed it to you, and then also provided a hard copy of one person that was concerned with the project. And I also received a call from the association president from the condos to the north, who they were going to have a meeting about this. I haven't heard back from them, but I suggested they talk to the applicant, have them come, and I don't know if they came to their association meeting, but that's all that I have, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. With that, I will open public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on this agenda item who has not filled out a request to speak form? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for questions. Commissioner Kaufman.
Vern, 24-hour operation. Will the playground, I mean, be 20?
The playground cannot operate during the nighttime hours, so the kids and the whole operation would be indoors over on the Kitski, in the building on Kitski Lane. So that the only time they can operate the outdoor play area is during the daylight hours.
Is that one of the conditions here, or is that state
code.
law?
That's
or
code. That's
okay.
code.
So is there a time limit? I mean, just any nighttime, so like after 9 o'clock, there won't be anybody there? Or?
Well, basically, when it's dark out, they can't.
Okay.
They can't use it. So
Even
it's going to obviously vary during the year, but once it becomes dark, they cannot have kids outside there. And
but there will be lighting in this playground?
There will be lighting, and also there will be sensors on the lighting so that if someone's in the play area at night, the lights will go on. So if there's no one in there, there won't be continuous lighting. There'll probably be some lighting, but there will be security lighting that's sensor activated so that if someone goes in there, the lights will go on.
Okay.
And they'll also have security cameras in there so they can record whoever's in there. And that the lighting and the security cameras are conditions of approval.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions? Commissioner Stapleton.
I have a question for the applicant, I think, maybe for Vern, I think for the applicant. I want to compliment you on your intention to build a operation like this. I know there's a need for this in the community. I have one concern about your description of there being homeless people currently living in that area, and it makes me think about the security of that area, even though there won't be anyone out there at night. Can you describe to me the fence? And I know this is probably in the staff report, I just went looking for it, but can you describe to me, I know it's like a cinder block fence, right? And how high will it be? And
6
in terms
feet.
of security, because I know that, you know, is it something that people can easily hop over?
Well, we were trying to come up with ideas on how to prevent that from happening. Want to hear them? No. That's what we were told, that it needs to be 6 feet high. We were thinking about putting plants on the outside of it that would be difficult to cross. Not impossible, but difficult. Anybody? Any others things to do?
I guess that's all I need to know. It's 6 feet and it's going to be solid.
Right.
So, okay.
Yes.
All right. And then are the cameras on the perimeter or just?
They'll probably be
the cameras
here.
and the sensor lights cover that whole outdoor area?
We'll probably put them right here so that it shines this way.
Okay.
And I'm kind of hoping that our being there will make things a little bit better, because we're going to be licensed for over 100 children, and the rest of the folks in the mall, whatever you call Franktown Corners, are very, very excited about having us come, bring more in there. I think it's going to be a good impact on the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Commissioner Harris?
Question for you as well. This is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Yep. That's the plan. That's because I'm a nurse, and nurses work on Christmas, and we work on Thanksgiving, and we work on all the holidays. And trying to find, if there is no need, then we won't, you know, we'll close the doors. But we don't want to turn somebody away who has to work. So.
Okay, well, and that kind of leads to my question of it being 24/7, that if if the hours of operation were to change, and then you have, you know, playground equipment and those kinds of things, and it's unattended, and maybe you only have the security cameras for an area like that. Did you have a plan for that?
Well, we were going to bring in everything that wasn't nailed down in the evenings, so that, because I could see people jumping the fence to steal things. Probably more likely just taggers, because there's a lot of tagging that is all over Reno and Sparks. From what I can see, it doesn't seem to matter whether it's a nice neighborhood or a not so nice neighborhood. They're tagging everywhere. So I'm open to suggestions.
Actually, that's probably out of what our scope is.
Scope of
for
expertise. Okay.
Expertise and work this evening. So we'll let you guys figure out how best to run your business. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Woosley?
Thank you. Question for staff. Please leave the map up. Thank you. First question is on the lighting. Is there any concern that there would be reasons to go back out there during the evening, even when there's not kids out there, and constantly turning on that light that would affect the surrounding neighborhood at dark?
I would think that there would be a minimal need for them to go out there if they have their security cameras on and the lights go on and they see someone out there. That would probably drive them to go out there. The light should be screened so that they're focused on the property. I mean, not should be, they're required to be by code. So they can't just have unscreened lights going on randomly that would, you know, be an impact to the neighbors. If there's someone in there and the lights go on, I'm sure someone's going to notice it, but if they're properly screened and it's monitored, you know, through the security cameras, they should be able to send somebody out there to see what's going on or call the police, that sort of thing. And if it is a problem, it would be a code enforcement issue. If someone complains about that, then code can investigate, you know, what's going on with that to determine if there is a violation.
Great, and I might follow up with the applicant on that, but that was, one of my questions was, you know, if there was going to be like a play shed out there that you'd store toys or any reason to go out there during the activity. And then I also, on the code enforcement, I know that the operating hours of the outdoor play was brought up, and, you know, obviously if that is probably defined as sunset, official sunset or something like that, and, you know, and if there's anybody in the audience that is, you know, from the neighborhood, I mean, that is always a way that they could call if that was being used beyond, but if it was an issue. The applicant, please. I guess I'm just concerned about this automated light, this motion light coming on all through the night, with there being apartments right.
We really wouldn't have any reason to go out there. Eventually, we don't have it on our plans right now for a storage area.
Okay.
This is the plans for the playground. But down the road, we would like to put a shed there so that we don't have to take the trikes in and out, the tricycles.
Anyways, just was a thought, you know, with those lights going on in the middle of the night.
We'll focus them down. Can you guys think of any reason we'd be out there at night? The children wouldn't be, you know, even though sunset may not be until 8:30 at night, we have them scheduled, and they'd probably be in every night by 6 o'clock.
Yes, my name is Mike Finn, and the only time the lights would come on at night is if someone went over the fence and triggered it. And at that point, if we noticed it on our monitors inside the childcare, which is further, you know, pretty far away, then at that point we would call the police. We would not send a childcare worker down to investigate, you know, why the lights come on in the playground. The playground probably won't be used before 8 o'clock in the morning, and probably won't be used after 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, even in the summer when it's light until 8, 9 o'clock, because the children will be on a schedule, and they'll be on the evening schedule at that point.
Thank you. You answered my question. Thank you.
And they will have like recesses, like 10 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, so.
I got it. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Harris?
Could you show me the map again of the flow of traffic for drop-off and pickup and where staff would be?
Yes, it's, we're leasing the property that's on the end. This is Kitsky Lane across here. There is a car wash right across from us, and there's parking over there. We have designated parking all in front of this daycare. We are entitled to 15% of the parking because that's how much of we're 15% of the facility. And there's parking all here and all along here. And we'll only be having pickup and drop off, so people won't be there for very long. And there is a place, the staff are going to be parking across in front of the, well, it's not really in front of, but over by the car wash.
Okay, so there would not be any drop-off or pickup on, I believe that's Kitsky Lane?
Oh, no. And we're going to put the fire department has approved putting a fence, a fence, so that if there was a fire, the children would be shuttled back into this parking lot or back, they said bring them back here because that would be safest if there really was a fire.
Okay, and as well as with it being a 24-hour operation, with that, the traffic is all on the inside of the shopping center. So as far as lighting in the shopping center.
Yeah, there's lighting both in the front and the back already along here. We're going to put lighting out here.
Right.
And we anticipate 7 and 7 for pickup. If the nurses come, that's our shifts. We work 7 to 7. And then I don't know, casino workers 4 to midnight.
Okay, so I mean, whoever you may be serving, you could have drop-off and pickup.
Oh, yeah, there's
at just
plenty
about
of
any
room.
time.
We're designated for all of this parking spaces here and here. And of course, we can use all the ones down here and here. So.
Okay, and you would be the only business
Oh,
that would
after
be
8
open?
o'clock. They close everything else down at Franktown Corners at 8 p.m. Lock it up.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Vern, I have a question for you regarding parking. In staff report, it says the applicant has indicated 18 parking spaces available. You have given us a ratio of spaces to children in the school, which is 1 to 9.
Correct.
This is on page 4 of your report.
Mhm.
We've heard that there's over 100 children proposed for this school. Do we need to consider putting a limit based upon parking as a condition to this application?
Well, per the application, they said 160, and actually there's a business license in for this facility right now, which we cannot approve until an affirmative action on this project is approved. So based on the parking spaces they say that they have allotted to them, they could have a maximum of 162 kids at 1 space for every 9 kids.
Okay. So that would just be part of their business license then?
Yes, because
And a
social
maximum occupancy of children would be 162
yes, per the parking requirement.
per the parking requirements, unless they get additional spaces, however, and then they'd have to come back to the,
Yes, if they want to add more children, then they would have to show they have more parking allocated to them, and the rest of the center is properly parked also.
okay. Very good, thank you. Any further questions? Discussion? Commissioner Romeo?
Yeah, I believe this is the old Fourth Turn restaurant that used to have some of the best fish and chips in town, just my opinion. but I'm glad to see it's revived. I live near there. I know the parking lot lights are on all night. I know there's lighting in the back of the building. It hasn't seemed to stop the vandalism. I am actually excited to see some activity in that shopping center and cleaning up the back area of that. I think it'll be a win-win for the merchants and a win-win for the residents of the neighborhood. And I'd also like to address Mr. Very Concerned Citizen. Next time you send us an email, whoever you are out there, please give us your name so we can call you back and discuss these issues with you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Motion, Commissioner Kaufman?
In the case of LDC 1200039, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to conditions, and I can make all the findings.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Stapleton?
I can make the findings. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is LDC 12-00038, Calvary Baptist Church remodel. If the applicant's representative will come forward, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Romeo.
before we get into this issue, I received a yellow card. I do live within 750 feet, considerably closer than that. I do not have a problem, no interest, no financial interest in this. I think I could be fair and impartial, but I'm asking legal for an opinion.
Commissioner Romeo, based upon the analysis that we went through with Commissioner Egan, I think it's best in this particular instance that you appropriately disclose, but I would also recommend that you recuse yourself from this matter.
And Mr. Chairman, based on legal's advice, I will recuse myself from this issue.
Thank you very much. I will be calling your name in a few minutes. With that, do we have any disclosures? No? Please introduce yourself, sir. You have 15 minutes or less to describe your project.
Hi, my name is Fred Jordan. I'm the pastor of Calvary Baptist Church, and with a great deal of anticipation, we are seeking approval to significantly beautify the corner we are on. And if you've been on the corner of Plum and Harvard, it's a corner that desperately needs it, including us. We're going to be starting with some extensive landscaping if you've looked at the plans, and with an attractive shade structure, and that'll not only just improve the looks of people driving down, looks to people driving down Plum, but will facilitate and enhance some of our current activities. The breezeway we're projecting, putting on the front, was inspired by safety issues. It gets slipperier and all get out in the winter, and we have a lot of traffic between the two buildings, and as a plus, it should update the architecture as well. We also want to take down the 1970s pole kind of signage and replace it with monuments, something that will look a little more contemporary. And then finally, we, like lots of churches, we plan storage for last. So we have stuff stuck in every nook and corner, and we want to build a significant storage structure where we can put Christmas decorations and the like, and pull them out as necessary. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, staff. Welcome back, Nathan.
Thank you. Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner. If I could direct your attention to page 2, the last paragraph on your staff report. There's an obvious typo related to Hug High School. Of course, we're talking about Worcester High School adjacent to this, and I wanted to put that on the record. Staff concurs with the applicant's assessment. This is a high-profile intersection. We think that the findings can be met as conditioned. One of the concerns we have are with the expanded use of the outdoors for weddings and baptisms and that sort of thing. Due to the residential adjacency, we recommend conditions 5 and 6, specifically related to adjacency concerns. Another component of the special use permit is for the signage to be 12 square feet over what code would allow. We're allowed to do that should the Planning Commission grant that through the special use permit. The required landscaping that would normally be triggered to be brought up to code with the modest expansions that are a part of this are under 5%. Obviously, what they're proposing is substantial. Staff can make the findings and recommends approval.
Thank you, Nathan. With that, I will open public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms on this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on this agenda item who has not filled out a request to speak form? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the commission for questions, comments, discussion. Motion, Commissioner Stapleton?
I have a quick question about the sign. So, staff, is this the illustration of the sign here in the staff report? Where?
Correct. The sign in the staff report with the berm, that's the monument sign on the corner.
Oh, I get it. So what I'm looking at is on the corner is the sign, and then on either side, sort of like a banner going off to either side?
Correct.
Okay. And then where it's, you said 112?
Correct.
Is the height?
112 is the total.
Oh, the total area
size.
of the sign.
And again, this would meet code just in and of itself. They want to go 12 square feet more. That could be approved through the special use permit.
Oh, okay, I see. All right. Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. I do. Nathan, don't sit down yet. Sorry about that. Condition number 6, could you please explain to me why or what time is curfew for the one night per month that you have conditioned for beyond 6 p.m.? And is there a curfew to it? Is it?
It's a recommendation. There's a similar special use permit to condition that this was taken from. It gives the opportunity to have outdoor activities with amplified sound at least once a month, still within the parameters of the noise code.
Okay. So it stays with, so that way it stays within our existing ordinances for noise code. That's why you didn't apply a different later time to that one particular day a week?
Correct.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
If I can just add a clarification on that.
Claudia
please.
Hanson.
Claudia Hanson, Planning and Engineering Manager. Even though it's specified that they need to meet the code section within the conditions, they would have to meet it whether that condition is there or not. So just to let you know, just to clarify that.
Thank you. Any further comments, discussion, motion? Commissioner Stapleton.
In the case of LDC 12-00038, Calvary Baptist Church remodel, based on on compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to conditions.
And can you make the findings?
My motion said based on compliance with the applicable findings. That means I can make the findings.
Okay, we just normally say I can make the findings. That's all.
I can make the findings.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Commissioner Kaufman?
I'll second that motion, and I can also make the findings.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good luck with your project. Next on our agenda this evening is LDC 12-00041, Family Dollar Store on Stead Boulevard. Welcome back, Commissioner Romeo. If the applicant's representative will come forward, please. Any disclosures? Commissioner Kaufman.
I've had conversations with the applicant's representative.
Thank you. Commissioner Woosley.
I've had emails and conversation with the applicant representative.
Thank you. As have I. Commissioner Romeo.
As have I.
Commissioner
As
Harris.
have I.
Commissioner Stapleton.
Yes, me too.
Commissioner Egan.
Me too.
Thank you. The applicant's representative will introduce herself, please. You will have 15 minutes to introduce your project.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Melissa Lindell with Wood Rogers. I have with me tonight Chris Forsythe, representing Family Dollar, and Vince Griffith with Reno Engineering. The proposed project is an 8,320 square foot Family Dollar store. Family Dollar is a neighborhood retail type store that sells groceries and dry goods. The Family Dollar Company is a Fortune 500 company based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and they've been in business over 40 years. They have over 8,000 stores nationwide, and they've recently decided to expand into northern Nevada. This is the first project for Family Dollar in Reno, and they're hoping to establish a number of stores in the area. The site is zoned MU, which allows retail stores, and it's located in the North Virginia TOD area. The project site consists of 1.16 acres and is located on this vacant land in between the Maverick convenience store and a retail strip center to the north. Surrounding uses include O'Brien Middle School across the street and railroad tracks in quite a large easement, and Sierra Sage Apartments to the west. As you can see on this aerial, all of the development along Stead Boulevard, extending from just south of the interchange of 395 all the way past Silver Lake Road, is developed with buildings located in the rear of the lots with parking in the front. So there are no TOD buildings, including all the schools over here, that have been developed in this area. And this is kind of a last piece of the puzzle in the Stead Transit Corridor. The project automatically requires a special use permit because the site is located within 300 feet of the school, which is over here, and within 300 feet of the apartment complex, which is over here. I have talked to the owners of the apartment complex here with regard to any concerns that they may have with this, and they are quite supportive of the project and supportive of the building elevations that have been provided. Special use permits and variances related to the TOD requirements are also requested and include a minor reduction in the FAR requirement from 0.25 to 0.243. We almost made it. We're just a little shy. We have a request to have the building set back more than 18 feet from Stead Boulevard, similar to all the other buildings along Stead Boulevard. A request to allow parking in the front, similar to all the buildings along Stead Boulevard, and a request to reduce the requirement for 75% of the building frontage to be comprised of building, similar to all the other buildings on Stead Boulevard. This site is improved with 2 access drive easements that are actually located on the property. The one here on the south serves the Maverick store and is a joint driveway for this parcel. The one on the north is located on this parcel as well, and it's a joint parcel driveway for the strip center as well as this parcel. There's also an existing sidewalk along the street and an existing bus pad. And there's a railroad line that comes here with an easement that extends in through the property. And the railroad tracks are about 7 feet higher than what the finished floor of the building will be. So the property moves up in elevation from the site. The site's constrained by all these easements, and these easements total over 16,000 square feet, which is quite large, and it reduces the buildable area of the site from over 50,000 to about 34,000. I'll draw your attention to our site plan. The proposed project locates the building to the rear of the property, similar to the other properties, and has the parking in the front, and the loading area in the back, which is next to the railroad tracks. So we figured that was a good solution to the problem of having loading on the side or in the front. It just didn't work. Loading needs to be in the back of the building. The layout is consistent with the adjacent development of Maverick on the one side and the strip mall on the other, and is customer and pedestrian friendly as well. Several aspects of the TOD are met with the design of this project. Some are not. And in terms of compliance, the project uses the shared driveways as recommended in the TOD corridors for traffic purposes. The applicant is willing to remove the sidewalk. There's a sidewalk that's already located right adjacent to Stead Boulevard, and they're willing to tear that out and relocate it to comply with the TOD requirements of the 18-foot of landscaping with the meandering sidewalk. So that sidewalk will be taken out, and that part of the project is in compliance with the TOD. The front and sides of the store will be improved with decorative paving for the pedestrian aspect of the project, and there's a sidewalk connection from the sidewalk and the bus pad, protected striped driveway to the front door. In addition, the applicant has agreed to direct the funds from the 1% pedestrian amenities requirement to the bus pad area for RTC improvements such as bus signs, trash cans, benches, even possibly a solar light. So we'll be working with RTC on that. Landscaping on the project exceeds code by about 1,200 feet. And in terms of the building elevations, they're also in compliance with the TOD. We worked really hard with staff. The applicant did several renditions to try to satisfy staff's requirements for the TOD in terms of providing pillar insets, larger pillar insets, stone facade, the windows, making these pop-ups on the front of the building, providing the awnings, providing the color bands and so forth. In terms of the sides, we worked extensively again with staff to vary the pillar sizes, make bigger pillar sizes, score the ephes, and provide the rock bands. So the applicant really worked hard on that and made a lot of concessions that that is not typical of their Family Dollar buildings. The one thing that we could not agree on with staff, however, was the location of the building and the parking, which is the subject of the variance request. There you go, thank you. Again, here's the Maverick store in the back. Here's the strip mall that portrays there. So we did come up with the layout that would meet the TOD requirements by pushing the building all the way to the front of the street, and then so that would be the side. The front would face Maverick, and the back would face the strip mall. And what this did, because of the railroad easements and the other access easements, is it restricts parking. And this site layout cannot meet city code in terms of parking, which is a detriment to Family Dollar because they need all the parking that is allowed by code. So this plan's 8 stalls short, and it is not desirable for Family Dollar for a number of reasons, for their customer flow and having customers park in the back here by the railroad tracks, having to come all the way from these locations to the front door. And also it puts the truck loading in a very awkward position. It puts it opposite the front, but facing the strip center here, and it conflicts. It makes the trucks have to circulate around through the parking areas, which we don't think is ideal from a pedestrian safety or pedestrian-friendly aspect. So with the preferred site plan, in contrast, shows that that we use the parking efficiently, provide the access points to the front of the building and the sides where customers typically like to park. We're putting the loading and the truck dock in the back, hidden, if you will, with the railroad tracks, and the truck traffic doesn't conflict with the circulation of customers' vehicles and walking in and out of that. They do have truck deliveries during the hours of operations, which are 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. They do not operate 24 hours, so truck deliveries are coming in the daytime hours to let the workers that are working there participate in the unloading without any overtime hours. Most importantly, this is the layout that works for Family Dollar, which is a Fortune 500 company, and they've had quite a bit of experience with over 8,000 stores. They really know what works when you're having customer easy access in the front, visibility like everybody else along the street. So with that, we believe all the findings can be met, and I'd like to highlight just a few. And I'd also like to point out, too, that with the truck parking in the back, this orange line represents what would be fire truck access. So fire truck access can easily get back around with the truck parking as well. In terms of the findings for the special use permit, the project is compatible with the surrounding land uses, and I submit that property along Stead Boulevard is largely developed with the parking in the front and the buildings in the back, as I showed on the first aerial. The site is located over 200 feet from the nearest apartments and will not impact views or privacies, and I have an email correspondence in your file from the Peaks, George and Greg Peak, who own those apartments to the west. The project is an allowed use in the MU zone and therefore is compatible with the master plan. There are adequate services in the area. This is almost like an infill site because it's one of the last pieces that's going to be available for development in this area. The freeway is right here, and there are adequate services. Traffic can be mitigated with the shared driveways, and a safe pedestrian environment that does not conflict with delivery trucks can be created. For the variance findings, the property is characterized by extraordinary conditions, and I submit that it's constrained by over 16,000 square feet of access and railroad easements, which impact the design. Due to that fact, if the building was placed in the front, the result would be the loss of 8 parking spaces, which puts it below code. The strict application of the TOD requirement would put the project out of compliance with city requirements in terms of parking and result in the hardship to the applicant in that they would be forced to lose parking for their customers, they'd be forced to locate parking far from the front door, and create an unsafe situation in that truck traffic would circulate through the parking areas. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to other properties, as properties in the area are all designed in the same manner that Family Dollar desires to design, with the buildings in the back, visibility, and parking in the front. And finally, the variances are consistent with the intent of the code, as a number of the TOD and MU requirements are being met. With that, I'll conclude my remarks, and we will be available for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Staff?
Good evening, Vern Close, Senior Planner. As proposed, the project is not consistent with 4 specific standards contained within the mixed-use North Virginia Transit Corridor and the mixed-use sections of code. Melissa went through those: the building orientation, the FAR, the parking, and the building location. It's staff's belief that a majority, if not all, of these standards could be met by redesigning the site. Plan modifications could be made to address special use permit A related to setbacks while placing the required parking for the store to the sides and rear of the building, thus eliminating variance A. Increasing the FAR would not be difficult. Because it's about 200 square feet, they would have to increase the size of the store. The applicant has the ability to meet the FAR, as I just mentioned, with minor modifications to the site plan. In looking at the variances, the site is graded to be essentially flat, excluding access easements and the railroad, which they reduced. Their FAR was based on excluding those access easements from the site. So their FAR is based on the area of the site excluding those access easements. And the site has significant width and depth to accommodate a store. They essentially want to place the store that they place everywhere at this location without regard to the standards that are related to building orientation and park and those things that are required in the Todd corridors. And essentially a company's business plan or standard formula is not a hardship related to the findings that need to be made for a variance. Staff also believes that the project could be redesigned to, well, eliminate variance A while bringing the site closer into conformance with and potentially eliminating variance B, which is the amount of of building frontage along the site. They have about 50%. There are other ways to do that by doing an intensification plan, which at this point I'm sure they don't want to do because they don't plan on putting anything else on the site. So from their perspective, you know, this is a site plan that works for them, but it doesn't work according to the Todd standards. I think the biggest impact is the inconsistency with the intent and purpose of the code, which is to place the buildings close to the street so that the pedestrian activities and amenities are separated from the parking lot. Basically, the way this is designed is if you come to the store by bus or are walking along the sidewalk, you have to walk across a double row of parking to get to the building entrance. If they built it similar to what the standards require, the people could just come off the sidewalk and walk right into the building entrance. But that isn't what their model is, and so they're requesting relief from that. And I think the last thing is with regard to the special use permit is that if you look at all of the applicable master plan policies that have been discussed in the staff report, the first section with the general master plan policies, those apply to any project that would be built pretty much anywhere, and generally most projects can comply with those. But if you look at the North Virginia Todd master plan policies, this project doesn't really comply with a majority of those. So for those reasons, staff unfortunately has to recommend denial of the variances and the special use permit, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. With that, I will open public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak under public comment who has not filled out a request to speak form? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for questions, comments, discussion. Commissioner Harris.
Yes, I have a question for Vern, for staff. With regard to your discussion or your comments that you made about compliance with the Todd and the way the other buildings are the way they lie along that corridor, and if under your recommendation or to be in compliance with the Todd, to have that building going under, you know, basically having the building on the street, it would kind of be the odd building within that block. I'm just wondering how and why that would even fall under this. I mean, and I understand that it's the recommendation or the specifications of the Todd, but just looking at it from a somewhat of, I guess, a practical type of view, it seems like it would be the odd building in that block.
Granted, it would be a different view along the street as far as where the building would be placed, where the parking would be placed. Yes, it would be different than that. We went through this process with a Maverick store to the south, and they had similar variances requested. So when that one came in, the property right here was the last developed property on the street, and they made the same argument, well, all the buildings up here are there. But if you go from here all the way down the freeway, absent in this one, the pattern could be established in that area, but a variance was approved to set that building back farther than this building. It's 200 feet off the street. So we're here to enforce the code. They didn't give us anything really to work with to compromise on the aspects that are causing us to recommend denial. So at this point, the code says that you're supposed to do this, and from our perspective, there aren't any compelling hardships or unusual situation other than that the other properties are built that way. They still have the ability to build the project essentially the way the code requires them to do it. As indicated in the staff report, there's a couple of examples of similar sized buildings and projects in the South Virginia Todd and also to the north of this site on the west side of Stead Boulevard, probably about 2,000 feet north of this site, where they've provided plans that meet these requirements. So yes, they are kind of in between two buildings that are set back that way, but when the standards get put in place, do you just ignore them, or do you enforce them, or do you change them? And I guess that's kind of a subject that has come up, but at this point, that's what the rules say, and we're just enforcing the rules, and we believe that they could meet them. They just don't want to because that's what their business plan is. I'm sure there are a few things related to their site plan, but essentially they could redesign the site to meet the standards. I think they probably disagree, but again, we're not here to design projects for people. We're here to review them for conformance and give it our best judgment as to what the recommendation should be. So the ball is in your court to decide this issue.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Woosley.
Vern, I have a question for you. Pedestrian traffic from this area, would you think that the main pedestrian traffic would be coming from the bus or walking over from the apartments? I'm just trying to think of a flow of pedestrian of traffic and what would be the likely, I don't know, origination of that.
The bus stop or people using other facilities along the street. I would probably tend to think that most of the people coming to this place are going to drive to it, just by where it is at this particular end of town, and there isn't a whole lot of other pedestrian type activity in the area, but that's kind of a result of the pre-existing pattern, and the Todd was supposed to kind of modify that pattern. So at this point, we don't have that.
And there is an existing in-use bus pad right in front?
I don't know if it's in use, but there's a bus pad there. I don't believe I saw a sign there when I was out there, but was there a sign? Is it?
It's not in use right now.
It's
planned.
I'm assuming they put that in because it looks pretty new when they graded Maverick, but I mean, it looks pretty new.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Stapleton? No?
I don't necessarily have a question. I have some thoughts and, maybe some leading points for discussion if you guys want to go there since you called on me.
Any further questions before we get there? I have a question for the applicant, and then we'll start with you with comments. If your proposed location is approved this evening, would your client be willing to accept a condition that no deliveries from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. If that truck area was was moved to the back since it's fairly close to apartments. I know there's train tracks back there, and occasionally there will be that random engineer going through at night, but would that condition be acceptable to your client?
Yes, it would.
Thank you very much. With that, I have no further questions, and we'll start with Commissioner Stapleton.
Let's see. I have a lot of thoughts about this. I talked to Melissa for a little while yesterday, and I read through this a few times. And also hearing Vern's presentation tonight, you know, we don't really hear that often from staff that that the applicant doesn't give them much to work with. That to me says a lot. I understand that you guys are a Fortune 500 company, and I congratulate you on your success. You probably, you know, you have a very successful model that is a standard model, and it sounds like you have a model that works a lot of times. You know, it's your model that works for you, and that's the model that you want to put here into the northern part of our city. However, not every community or neighborhood is standard, and sometimes, you know, one cookie cutter model that's worked, you know, 8,000 other times, it's not, you know, the landscape varies, the neighborhood varies everywhere, and that's the reason why we have codes, and we, you know, have codes and rules that we apply in terms of land use standards that we ask, you know, developers to meet. All that being said, I get that what the real hardship here, I'll just say it, is the TOD regulations. And realistically, you know, this is what I think Kevin just asked this. Where's the pedestrian traffic? I mean, the TOD standards are put in place to make the neighborhood more walkable. Let's be realistic, it's not a walkable neighborhood. So we've had this conversation a lot of times, you know, and we're, you know, this is the reason we had this workshop last month, and we're going forward with looking at the TOD standards because, you know, it doesn't make sense. So here's Vern applying these standards that, you know, may not make sense, you know, on this corridor here, you know, because that's what his job is. But do they make sense where they are? I mean, that's a conversation for the future. So my saying that's the true hardship, clearly that's not one of the hardships that we are deciding on for this case. That's not a hardship that counts for us. But that's the situation realistically. So I do understand where the applicant is coming from in terms of the hardships on the lot with the two easements on the side and the railroad tracks in the back. However, you know, 200 more feet to meet the FAR, I mean, come on, that's, you know, that's not a whole lot. I don't know. I understand the hardships. I also, you know, it's important that, you know, some of the regulations we have are important and are in place for important reasons, and it's important to show an effort to try to make a development that meets the needs of the community. Those are the things I'm thinking about, and so I'd be interested in hearing what the rest of the commissioners have to say about this.
Thank you, Commissioner Stapleton. I have a quick question that you just kind of reinforced I was thinking about earlier. And Vince, if you don't mind, would you come forward, please?
Yes, indeed. For the record, Vince Griffith, Reno Engineering Corporation.
By the way, welcome back from that eastern country you typically work in to the city of Reno.
Thank you.
Is there, you've done the layout that we're looking now on the screen. It's a site plan.
Yes.
Accessibility-wise, landscape requirement-wise, parking-wise, drive aisle-wise, is there room for 200 square feet in that to be added to that building to meet the FAR regulation and still maintain the drive aisles and fire traffic?
Commissioner, we definitely looked at moving the building and shoving it up towards the street and relocating it every which way. So we don't often like to not agree with staff. It's not pleasurable to be here and not be in agreement with staff. So I would just let Commissioner Stapleton know that we looked at a lot of options there to make that work. As for the actual floor area ratio, Melissa really looked into the percentages there. We did a lot of calculations back and forth. And I think that what we might be up against here is the footprint of the building is a standard, and I'd have to ask the client on that to confirm.
Okay.
And-
Melissa, would you,
Yeah.
like to address that rather than Vince? Thank you, Vince.
And Chris has built many of these. Chris, you might want to come up too and talk about how, how you deal with standard footprints and how trying to add 200 feet is difficult.
They have.
For the record, if you'd introduce yourself,
Chris
please.
Forsyth, Brigham City, Utah, where I'm from. And as Melissa said, I've constructed a number of these for Family Dollar in the western states, and very excited to be here in Reno. This is the first of many others that they want to bring to the area. I would also like to say, if I can, while I'm speaking, that I feel like from our perspective, we've tried very, very hard, cooperated in every possible way to give those concessions, and I could list them, and Melissa's done an excellent job, but our attitude and spirit has been to do that. And we will continue that as we pick other sites and try to grow here in the area. The prototypes that are set forth are all designed and fixtured and very scientifically done for their model. And that is the actual issue that makes it difficult to...
So you have one size fits all over the United States?
80 by 100, 100 by 80.
That's it? That's all you do? If you don't do that, you leave town?
No, and I'm not from Family Dollar, I'm just the contractor
Okay,
and the
but
developer.
that's where we're at.
Well, I think you get into issues with the mechanical, the roofing, the structural.
There are all those
adding-
challenges.
You're a contractor.
Yep.
You build these to add 200 feet.
Usually the main concern is scrunching down the drive aisles, not allowing adequate parking spaces or size of parking. Those are the main concerns. Leaving enough drive aisle width
Okay.
that trucks pulling back, don't hit into each other. That's really the issue.
Okay. Melissa, if the building was moved to the front, would you have been able to meet the FAR regulation, or would you still been requesting a variance?
We would still be requesting the variance because with moving the building to the front, we lose the 8 spaces, and now we're in compliance with code, out of compliance with code, so we'd need a variance for that. So we're replacing one variance for the other. You know, this commission has seen many, many FAR situations, and most people don't meet the FAR by a long shot. We're 200 feet short, so that seems to be a pretty minor thing. But we have, really worked with staff, Dagny. I want to let you know that.
Wait a minute, these are my questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you very much. That's all
Mr.
I have.
Chairman, can I?
Commissioner Kaufman, go ahead.
And I guess this is probably for Vern. If this wasn't in the TOD, would the FAR be an issue?
There isn't a minimum requirement in standard zoning for FAR, so they could build this building in standard zoning.
Okay.
But
Thank
that
you.
isn't what they're asking for.
Commissioner Woosley?
Well, with your questions, I definitely had some other questions that came up. If it's all right if I can ask the applicant?
Go ahead.
Please. I see this one alternate proposal here, you've thrown up that I understand doesn't meet the FAR. But, saying that you guys have tried different options, trying to get it to fit in there. Do you have any other that you have with you to go over different options?
Well, the only other option that we tried that was totally infeasible was this, if you will, is the front, and this is the back. If we flipped it so the front was on the street and the back was here, then we'd make a worse case with the deliveries being in the back and people having to come back through the delivery area to get to the front of the store, which is a really tough thing. You're kind of orienting your back is kind of turning into your front. So that was a worse situation, and there's no other situation that still leaves the parking problem because you've got these easements to deal with that you can't park in and you can't build on. So those are the only two options, to have the building oriented this way or to flip it and have the front here and the back in this location. So it's a very awkward situation for buildings that require loading docks and loading areas. It may work for other type of real estate buildings or something, personal services that don't have loading issues. But when you have a loading issue, then your loading dock can't be in the front.
Gotcha. I just, you know, if you guys, you know, like you said, I'm sure you did go through several renditions of this, and
Yes.
and I am trying to visualize myself the different options, and so maybe next time we could, you know, just as an idea, you know, kind of help go through those different ones and why they may not work, you know. But I do see here, you know, your you know, with the loading docks off to the side facing the strip mall.
Yes.
Yeah, that particular issue, but okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Romeo.
Are we back in comments now? Or?
Comments, please.
Okay. Well, it's one of my pet things. You can't change the driveways. You can't change where the railroad is. The layout is excellent and makes good business sense. Having said that, staff's in a tough position because they have to write their reports based on what is currently in place, not what is going to be in place in the next 2 months. Also, that's why there's special use and variance procedures. This case clearly fits within those parameters. I can make every finding if it wasn't in the TOD. I think I can even make the findings with it being in the TOD. The floor area ratios are closer than most that we've already granted variances for. The articulations there, a lot of the things are there that meet the TOD standards. I think the TOD in this area is totally uncalled for and ridiculous. I think it's a well laid out facility with the loading in the back, the traffic flow, the safety issues with the drives coming in and off the boulevard there. I can make all the findings, and I'm going to support this project.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kaufman.
I'm going to put on my common sense hat here. And when you look at this project, you look what's around it. I know it's in a TOD, and we've had the discussion, you know, about a TOD, but you talk about foot traffic and everything, and again, having driven by that area many times, there's just not the foot traffic. And so I'm kind of like Commissioner Romeo. I can support this project 100% and say, hey, this is kind of what we look for as far as to blend in. And I think if we put the building on the street, I'd have a harder time trying to support that with everything else set back. So, and I can make all the findings.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Woosley?
Yeah, I'd like to just follow up on that. I'm really trying hard to think of other ways to position the building where you wouldn't have a loading dock either facing the business to the right or left, just for, you know, visual blight. And I do like the idea of TODs and, you know, the pedestrian access. I don't know if I feel it's appropriate for this particular parcel, and the pedestrian access. And I do believe that the current layout that they propose, I think, does make sense. I like the meandering sidewalk. I like the vegetation. And I think for this particular parcel, the proposed layout by the applicant, I can support.
Thank you. Any further comments? Commissioner Stapleton?
Yeah, I'll just follow up hearing sort of some of the conversation, because I'm really still trying to, you know, go back and forth on this. And just in terms of hearing, you know, it is true the access, you know, that's fixed, the 2 access points, so are the railroad tracks, and in terms of the orientation of the building. But as sort of came to light earlier when Chair Weisky was questioning the applicant. There's no flexibility whatsoever in the actual design of the building, and that to me is that inflexibility isn't in the site or in the code. That that's in the applicant and in this design that seems to be universal for everything they build. I understand that's a successful business model. That being said, it is exciting to hear when companies want to come into our community and, invest here. I just, I have this sense that there's not a whole lot of flexibility, and it makes me think, well, what kind of consideration, for our community do you have if you really, aren't giving that much flexibility, and that there's this total inflexibility on the design of the building. All that being said, this is what I'm going back and forth on. I'm sorry for doing this while I'm on the microphone here, but I do really feel, I also agree with my fellow commissioners about the standards that are in place and whether those should apply or not, and that is why we have, variances and SUPs. So, I'm leaning towards, I think I can, support this with reservations, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Commissioner Egan, did you have something you wanted to share?
Just real quick, I was going to just say first of all, I'm in support of this project for obvious reasons. I think the common sense hat rings a bell probably with all of us. But the idea of inflexibility, I think we have to look at the economic development facet of this as well, and our flexibility on the Planning Commission. And this is exactly the type of thing that we need to be flexible on, in my opinion. So I'm in full support of this.
Okay. Commissioner Harris, if you don't have anything, I'm going to jump up. At least 3 of us sitting commissioners, possibly 4 of us, approved the property next door with its variances. That's Mavericks. And at that time, I recalled a discussion taking place that said, when the property in the middle comes along, we're probably going to have this same discussion. And here we are, 24 to 36 months later, having the same discussion. I don't like the idea of a loading dock and trucks parking at an entrance off of Stead Boulevard the way our Todd corridor would call plans or ordinance would call for it in the design that we see before us. That's why I'm actually happier to see the building move to the back. I wasn't in favor of it until I saw a design that showed a fire lane going to the west. Now that I know a truck can be parked back there, an emergency can take place, and emergency vehicles can get around the building, I think that creates a safer design for the community, for the people that are in the building or dealing with an emergency. So with that being said, to me it's not an issue of a Todd corridor and whether or not we're reviewing our Todd corridor standards or what our feelings are on Todd corridors. It's specifically this project and how it applies to those ordinances and to this property. And again, we have a variance system, a special use permit system to go through and review it. And I don't like the fact that you can't add 2 feet onto it, because being in the business, I can tell you that 2 feet you could do it very easily on an 80 by 100 building without adding beams and columns, and that upsets me a little bit. Fortune 500, unfortunate 200 company, it doesn't matter to me. We're a community that has standards, and you're going to be here working, and we hope that you'll find ways of working with us as we're finding ways of working with you. In this case, I will support it simply because I think it matches what's existing, and it will free up the traffic that's going to be generated by this building from Stead Boulevard, because it's moved to the back, and it will allow egress and ingress to flow a lot freer. So I'm going to support this project. With that, I will accept a motion, Commissioner Romeo.
Mr. Chairman, case of LDC 12-00041. I'm going to do this in two motions.
Please.
Based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to conditions. I can make the findings.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Kaufman?
I'll second that motion, and I can also make the findings.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Special use permit carries unanimously. Commissioner Romeo?
In the same case, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the variance. Based on conditions, I can make the findings for the variance.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Woosley?
I can second that. I can also make the findings.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project. Thank you. At this time, before we start Somerset Village, I'd like to take a 5-minute break, and we will re-adjourn at 8:25. Thank you. Next on our agenda, item number 7, LDC 12-00042, Somerset Village 5D. If the applicant's representative will come forward. Andrew, do we have any disclosures? I received an email on this one. I don't know if anybody else did.
I did as well.
Commissioner Romeo?
I did too.
Commissioner Harris?
I did as well.
Anybody else?
I
Commissioner
did
Costa?
also.
Sure, I did too.
Commissioner Stapleton?
As
Commissioner
did I.
Egan? Commissioner Woosley?
As did I.
Okay, good. There we go. With that, Andy, you have 15 minutes or less to describe your project. Thank you.
In the interest of the Planning Commission's time, I will take less. For the record, Andy Durling with Wood Rogers, here representing Lewis Operating Corp. Ted Ericon with Lewis is here as well to answer any of your questions. Just real briefly to go through sort of an overview of the project. This is the third tentative map for this specific piece of land. First one was approved in 2004, included villages 5B and 5D. So very small lot products at that time. That was scrapped for the 5D, and a new tentative map came through in 2008, which is sort of similar to what's here, although smaller lots. That then expired, and Lewis obtained the property and now is coming through with the tentative map for 100 lots. We utilize the existing mass grading and the grading for the roadways for the layout that you see on the overhead. The lots are a little bit larger than what was proposed previously. The former plan was a gated community, 5B, which is located just to the north here, is a gated community, so we just have one issue where we'll be providing an emergency access gate. This will not be proposed as a gated community. The surrounding landscape around the property has been completed adjacent to Del Webb and Back Nine, with the only real exception being a small parcel that is common area in the 5D. That will be landscaped consistent with the adjacent already landscape parcels, common area parcels. Since the last tentative map, this Somerset PUD was updated to include the Sierra Green building standards. We went through a preliminary assessment of those and more than exceed the requirements for a 1-star rating for the Sierra Green standards as provided as Exhibit E in your staff report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Staff?
Thank you, Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner. Staff received 2 emails in opposition to the project. They were forwarded to the Commission for your review. Staff can make the applicable findings, recommends approval of the tentative map with the 14 conditions listed. We're available for any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. With that, I will open public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms on this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on this agenda item who has not filled out a request to speak form? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the commission for questions, discussion. Commissioner Woosley, did you have a question? No? I have a question of staff. In this tentative map, increasing to 100 lots, and I know that typically we ask the question of utilities provided, services provided. Does it appear at this time that those utilities are available, will be available when this project were to be built?
Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner, that's a condition of approval.
Okay. So then at that time, whatever time that is, the property owner would come forth and show staff that there's appropriate water, appropriate sewer.
That's required by state law.
Okay. Thank you very much. Before I ask for do you have a question? Commissioner Stapleton.
I do have a question for staff or for Andy. How has this changed since the last map? You said, is it the lot sizes that increased?
The last map was somewhat smaller lot sizes, and it was actually more lots. So to kind of get back to your question, your previous question, this is actually decrease in density. So as far as the planned utilities go, there's more than adequate capacity for this in this planned community. And there's also existing sewer and storm drain and water, I believe, within that roadway, and that's kind of what dictated some of the design that you see in front of you.
And how many lots were there before?
The last tentative
The
map was
last
118, I believe.
Okay.
So this is
Thank you.
100.
Okay. Motion. Commissioner Woosley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In case number of LDC 12-00042, Somerset 5D, based on compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the tentative map subject to conditions, and I can make the findings.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Stapleton?
I can make the findings, and I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project. Next on our agenda this evening is item LDC 12-00044, 675 Edison Way, zone change. If the applicant's representative will come forward, please. Are there any disclosures? Nope. Introduce yourself. And you'll
Good
have
evening.
15
For the
minutes.
record, Dave Snellgrove with Wood Rogers, here representing the applicant, which is Aqua Drilling and Well Service, and we also have the other tenant representative, which is P&F Distributors. I believe the request is fairly straightforward. We have a industrial master planned area. We're requesting a change from industrial commercial to industrial. Vern did a great job in the staff report in identifying some of the issues, and also a great job in pulling out the findings in terms of how we conform with the findings that need to be made. With that, I will go ahead and close my presentation. I will be available for any questions that you may have, as will we have members from P&F Distributors, and we also have the contractor present just in case there are any questions.
Thank you, Dave. Staff?
Hello again, Vern Close, Senior Planner. Probably the issue that would be related to this is what's the use change? What can they do there with the I zone versus with the IC zone? As indicated in the staff report, a majority of the uses that are allowed in the current IC zone are also allowed in the I zone, and then some of the more potentially obnoxious uses that could be instituted under the I zone would require a special use permit. So there isn't a significant change in the type of uses. The standards are very similar. One of the reasons that they indicated for doing the zone change or requesting the zone change is to allow outdoor storage on the front of the lot, which you can't do in the IC zone. They would have to screen that in accordance with code. So all those issues would be addressed at such time as they came forward with a building permit, or if they came forward with a use that required a special use permit. So staff can make the findings, and we're recommending approval. We didn't receive any comments or letters, and it went to the NAB, I believe. Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. With that, I will open public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms?
No.
Okay, is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on this agenda item who has not filled out a request to speak form? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the commission for questions, comments, discussion, motion. Commissioner Kaufman? Commissioner Stapleton, I'm sorry. Commissioner Stapleton, did you have a question?
I have a question unless you.
Go ahead.
We're going to ask a question. Okay. I have a question for Vern. How come this is a zoning change as opposed to just a variance?
Well, that would be another way, I guess, to handle it, but doing a zone change makes all the things that they might do with a variance conforming. So you're not varying in the code. You're just allowing, basically what it does is allow a few more uses, but again, those types of uses would require a special use permit that are significantly different than what we have here. So yes, you could do it that way, but it's not as clean as doing the zoning. And in this particular instance, the master plan and the surrounding uses and what's going on in that area appear to support this, so.
And add on to that, with a variance, you would have to show a hardship. There's an unusual situation in the property, and probably not the case in this instance.
It makes sense. I can support it. I was just wondering so sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. In my mind, I thought zone change permanent for this parcel, variance, maybe, well, I guess, is a variance.
Variance does run with the land.
Right.
But again, you would have to show a hardship, and there really isn't one in this case.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Stapleton, you want to make a motion?
Yes. In the case of LDC 12-00044, based on compliance with the applicable findings, I move to recommend that City Council approve the zoning map amendment by ordinance.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Harris.
I can make the findings as well, and I second this motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck. Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is a text amendment, TXT 12-00013, mobile classroom units. The applicant's representative will step forward, please.
That would be me. So Mr. Boster is here from the school district. The school district did send a request to City Council to review the requirement that is currently in place
Claudia, excuse me, can I interrupt you real quick? I just thought of something that I should run by legal. Rob, my company does a lot of work with the school district. We currently do not have any contracts with the school district. I'm not bidding on any work with the school district. In the past, that has allowed me to sit for an action item. I would like your take on it. Do you want me to stay, or should I recuse?
So historically, while you have not been performing work for the school district, or you did not have any bids out for the school district, you have simply disclosed and remained to participate?
That's correct.
Okay. And so right now, you don't have any pecuniary interest involved in this particular matter, and you feel that you could be fair and impartial in these proceedings?
Yes, I can.
Okay, then I think that your disclosure is enough at this point in time, is sufficient.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Claudia, go ahead.
That's all right. Currently in code, when it requires that when the school district or anybody would come in with a accessory structure, in this case would be mobile classrooms, and it's adjacent to residential or within 300 feet of residentially zoned property, it would trigger a special use permit or site plan review. This would allow up to, I think we have 5 years, I'm mixing up my numbers, up to 3 mobile classrooms to be allowed without the review of the special use permit or the site plan review. They'd be able to stay there for 5 years. If they want to go past that 5 years, then they could go through the special use permit and site plan review process at that time. But it would allow them that flexibility, because those classrooms are moved from campus to campus during the year, and every year wherever the wherever the student population is shifting, they need to, they would like to have that flexibility to shift these mobile classrooms to the various campuses. And again, if they're one location for over 5 years, then the original special use permit or site plan review trigger would come into place. And there are some standards that they would have to meet, architectural elements, paved access, sufficient parking, and we got those. Mike Boster brought those forward. Those are the standard conditions that we've put on these structures in the past, and have put that as proposed wording in this draft ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Any comment from the school district, or are you okay with staff's report?
Yes, for the record, my name is Mike Boster with Capital Projects for the school district, and we'd like to thank Councilman Haschef and Claudia for helping us craft this so that we're not having to come in for a use permit every single time we need to move these around, but at the same time giving the city assurance that we will meet certain standards as far as the color of the architectural style as much as possible with a mobile classroom, parking, access, that sort of thing. So we want to make sure we're doing things in a uniform way, but we don't have to every time come before you and say we're moving a classroom from Alice Smith to Hunsberger, that sort of thing. That does happen quite often. So we do appreciate the help of staff and council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I will open public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening who would like to speak on this agenda item? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for questions. Commissioner Romeo?
Claudia, I have a question. What previously, when they would do the SUP, we knew a time frame, we knew when it was approved, we knew how long it could be there. Who's going to review this, and how do we know when 5 years are up for the? Yeah, who's going to track the 5-year period? Same questions you were going to ask.
They still need to go through the building permit process. So when they come in for the building permit process, we have the ability to flag the parcel and put a timing on it so that we are made aware. A trigger tracking, and the trigger comes up within 5 years.
So is this something we're taking out of the special use permit process and putting it into an administrative review process?
It would go straight to building permit.
Straight to building permit. Okay.
If all the conditions are met.
Well, who's going to guarantee that the conditions are met?
At the building permit review.
Okay.
Claudia, if I can add
Yes.
something to that. Commissioner Romeo, when you submit for a building permit for something like this, all the departments in community development will get a chance to look at it and review it. So planning will look at it, engineering will look at it along with building.
And fire.
And fire, so that it gets a full review. And that's...
I understand that, but with this SUP process, there's clearly defined boundaries, there's conditions, and there's things that have to be met. This seems, we have had some controversial places where they wanted to put temporary classrooms in some neighborhoods, and I'm still kind of torn between expediting this for the school district and who would be adversely affected. I mean, it sounds like it's a good thing to do, but again, we've had people in lengthy public hearings here on special use permits for these temporary structures. I don't have an issue with it now. I just want to know that it's being tracked, it's being followed, and whatever requirements are on it, that they're in fact being met.
Yeah, and they'll be tracked the same way that we track them now, that the ones that do fall under the special use permit. Because many of those are on timelines of 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and we track it the exact same way that we track those currently.
And is there an appeal process if they get put somewhere where they're not, where the residents adjacent to that school don't want them?
They can.
Or do they have carte blanche to leave them there for 5 years?
They can appeal the administrator's decision, which would be the approval of a building permit, and someone can appeal that and they can appeal it for any reason, but most likely would only win that appeal if they're not following the standards set forth in code.
So my initial statement was right. It's going from special use permit to administrative review or administrator's review. Okay.
Commissioner Egan?
Yeah, just a quick question, Claudia. If there were a construction site with similar construction trailers on it, are they going to have the same requirements for parking and all of that that the school district has? Or
This
are
is
those completely different requirements?
Completely different. That's addressed under a separate section of code. This is only for classrooms.
Okay. So if they've got enough in terms of the space requirement, without going through the SUP process, you could put 3 at every school right now, even for the schools that don't currently have them, without having to come in front of the Planning Commission, and then shift them around for up to 5 years.
Correct.
Okay. So the implications
A maximum
of
of
this could be
3
pretty...
at each campus. So if you already had 3, you couldn't add 3 more. You'd have a maximum of 3 on that site.
Right. But if there's 5 schools in the North Valleys, none of which have mobile units, all of a sudden we could have 15 units go out tomorrow if they meet the building code requirements.
3 at each campus.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for 5 schools, 15. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Claudia, my question is this strictly for the school district, or is it for private schools, charter schools? Is it based upon classrooms? So if a business is doing teaching, then they would have these rights also?
It would be charter and public or private as well. So it's not just the school district, and public, private, and for secondary and primary.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Motion? Commissioner Harris?
Based on compliance, the findings, I move that we recommend the City Council approve the text amendment of TXT 12-0013.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Kaufman?
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you. Next on our agenda is TXT 12-00011, non-conforming sign standards. Staff?
Claudia Hanson, Planning and Engineering Manager. You may have heard over the past year plus, we've been working with an appeal of a building permit that allowed a on-premise digital sign at the corner of Virginia and California Avenue. The current code reads, no permit shall be issued for the alteration, enlargement, or relocation of a nonconforming sign. The sign was nonconforming, unless the changes will increase the level of conformance with the provisions of this chapter and title. And that is all the code currently says. So it does not give any parameters of how close it needs to come into conformance, if they make it 1 square inch or completely into conformance. It does not specify. It's quite vague, and it just says it has to increase the level of conformance, but it doesn't say in what way, which is how that sign was approved. Once council upheld the administrator's decision on that permit, at the same meeting, they initiated a zone change to put in some specificity into this section of code, and that is the ordinance that is before you. So we have added it, amended it to read, no permit shall be issued for the alteration, enlargement, or relocation of a nonconforming sign unless any changes decrease the amount of any nonconforming size, so square footage, by 25%, and any nonconforming height by 25%. And then the additional sentence for methods of lighting shall not be changed until all other elements of the sign are brought into full conformance. So if you had a non-illuminated sign and you wanted to turn it into a digital sign, you couldn't do that until the sign comes into full conformance. That is the proposed wording, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Claudia. With that, I will open public comment. Michelle, do we have anyone here who wishes to speak on this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Just to make sure, is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this agenda item who has not filled out a request to speak form? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the commission for comment, discussion, or motion. Commissioner Stapleton.
Claudia, Would it add insult to injury to add a minimum of before each 25%, just to make it clear that there is the option of coming into conformance for more than 25%?
Sure, that's fine. We can do that.
Just suggestion.
Commissioner Romeo, what was that?
The one I'm looking at says, be brought closer into conformance by a minimum of 25%.
It does?
No, I don't think.
That's what it says on the first page.
Oh, that's not what it says on the underlined code.
That's the staff report I think you're looking at.
See, that was subliminal. I caught that, and now I'm saying, hey, Claudia, can we add the word minimum?
That's fine. We can add in minimum. That's actually a great catch. Thank you.
With that, Commissioner Stapleton, would you like to make a motion with an amendment?
Yep. In the case of TXT 12-00011, based on compliance with the applicable findings, I move to recommend that City Council approve the text amendment by ordinance, including the amendment of adding a minimum of, quote, a minimum of, end quote, before 25%, both 25%.
Thank you, that makes sense, and Claudia and Michelle will make sure it comes out that way.
I fully understand it.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Kaufman?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project. Next on our agenda is TXT 12-00012, moratorium on application to alter signs.
Rob Boney, City Attorney's Office. Excuse me. And what you have before you is somewhat of a follow-up to the ordinance that Claudia just read. And what we're seeking here is Planning Commission's review and any suggestions that this moratorium give council the flexibility with respect to the amount of time needed to consider the proposed amendment. I think the way that the ordinance is written right now, we've asked until July the 3rd or the 5th, and it's escaping me at this, but July 3rd.
July 3rd.
For the ability to not accept any applications regarding any changes to non-conforming signs so that this proposed ordinance can get processed through council.
Thank you, Rob. With that, I will open public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Is there anyone left here this evening who wishes to speak on this agenda item who has not filled out a request to speak form? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the commission for comments, questions, discussion, motion. Commissioner Harris?
I just have one question. Are there any applications pending at this time that would be affected by this moratorium?
Well, this is kind of a second tier of the moratorium. We did adopt a resolution through council to put a moratorium in place. We also followed that up with an ordinance. It's kind of just to make sure that the moratorium is in place. So we have not been accepting any applications since that went into place 2 council meetings ago, I believe it was. So there aren't any in the system because we won't even allow the application in. It should be that if the ordinance under item 10, TXT 12-00011, if that gets approved by council, that will be adopted prior to this moratorium being adopted, and they will be able to rescind the moratorium at the same meeting when they adopt the ordinance. So it should be able to take place at the same meeting. But to answer that's a very long answer to your question. But no, there's no.
No, I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else with questions, comments, motion? Commissioner Egan?
In the case TXT 12-00012, moratorium on applications to alter, enlarge, or relocate non-conforming on-premise signs based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to recommend that the City Council approve the text amendment by ordinance. I can make the finding.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Stapleton?
I can make the findings. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project. Next on our agenda is Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report. We have a meeting next Wednesday. We did not have a meeting last month, and if anybody's looking for something to do next Wednesday night, 9th Street, County Chambers. Next, staff reports. Claudia, you get the next 3 or 4.
All the same ordinances are still moving forward. The review of the Todd ordinance, we have a workshop on the 16th, and so in 2 weeks. We're also looking at a quick amendment to big box standards, reviewing special use permit and site plan review requirements, and the land use table. So we've got about 4 or 5 big ordinances that we're trying to get through, which you should be seeing hopefully in the next few months. Training opportunities, that series from APA, the webinars is still going on, and fantastic series. If anybody's watching any of those, they're very good. I don't think we have any outstanding direction from Planning Commission, and I don't believe we had any council items on the last council agenda.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner's suggestion for future agenda items? None? Public comment. This public comment item is to allow the public to provide general public comment and not for comment on individual action items contained on this agenda. Open public comment. Michelle, do we have anyone here? Do we have any requests to speak for us on this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Is there anyone left here this evening who wishes to speak under this public comment?
Chairman, this is Rob Boney, City
Rob?
Attorney's Office, and I probably should have addressed this under training, and I'll call it a learning opportunity. There is an event that I believe all the planning commissioners have been invited to on the Virginia Street Bridge project, an open house. This is not something that staff believes will ever come before Planning Commission for any type of action or decision-making, but out of an abundance of caution, we have noticed that there may be a potential quorum of planning commissioners present at that meeting. So that means Chair Weisky will be put on the position of if there should be a quorum present, either opening a meeting as you normally would, or if there's no quorum present, there's no need to open the meeting. It's my understanding that there's no formal presentation given. This is simply a repeat of what was done, I want to say last August. It's an opportunity for citizens and whatnot to drop by and learn about the Virginia Street Bridge project by some people there that will be explaining what is going on with it and what the expectations are. But again, out of an abundance of caution, we did notice that. Should we find a quorum of planning commissioners present at one time?
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comment and take a motion for adjournment. Done. Thank you. See you in 2 weeks.
Dave, where you been?